All right, let's talk about the Falcons. Today, we're going to cut through all the noise, all the hot takes, and just look at the hard numbers behind one of the most confusing teams out there. The stats tell a wild story of incredible highs and some truly baffling lows, and we're going to dig in and figure out why.
So, here's the big question that seems to follow them everywhere, right? Are the Falcons champions, or are they underachievers? I mean, they've got a championship trophy sitting in their case, but does their overall record really back that up? Are they a team that shows up when it counts, or do they just get lucky one time? The stats? Well, they tell a fascinating and pretty contradictory story.
And that story really starts with this one number, 37.5%. Now, that's their overall win percentage across their entire 24-match history. And on the surface, that's not great, is it? It kind of suggests a team that loses way more than it wins. But as you're about to see, that number is actually super misleading. Because this team is basically a walking, talking, statistical contradiction. Seriously, to really get a handle on the Falcons, you have to just toss that big picture number out the window and break down their performance tournament by tournament. And this is where things start to get really, really interesting. Let's start at the very top, the absolute high point, their undisputed peak so far, winning the BBL in Season 4. This is it. This is the championship that puts them in that champions conversation to begin with.
So in the BBL, which is that long league-style tournament, their performance is totally solid. They've played 16 matches, they've won 8 of them, that's a clean 50% win rate. This isn't just a fluke, it shows a real pattern of competence over a long season that, led them straight to that trophy.
Okay, but that whole story of competence, it completely flips on its head when we switch from the marathon of the BBL to the high-pressure sprint of knockout tournaments. This is where the statistical picture just falls apart, dramatically.
And wow, this chart just illustrates the problem perfectly. I mean, look at that drop. You go from a totally respectable 50% in the BBL, and then their performance just craters in the knockout formats. They win only a quarter of their games in the Reboot Cup, and, well, the Duality Cup is a whole other story of pain.
Let's zoom in on those numbers. In the Reboot Cup, they've only scraped together one single win in 4 tries. But the Duality Cup, my goodness, it's a statistical black hole for this team. 3 matches played, 3 losses. That is a perfect record of failure.
0. That's it. That's the number of times the Falcons have ever won a match in the Duality Cup. It is the most jarring statistic in their entire profile, and it screams that there's a serious weakness when they're under that knockout pressure. So what is going on here, and who is behind these numbers?
To figure that out, we've got to zoom in from the team level and look at the players themselves. Who's the one consistently showing up, and who's shouldering the load for this team of extremes?
Let's kick things off with their batting. When you look at the Falcons' offense, there is one name that just stands head and shoulders above everybody else: Seymour Dunlap. Statistically, he's their most reliable, most explosive run scorer, period.
And this number right here proves it. 8. That's how many half-centuries, scores of 50 or more, that Dunlap has put on the board. That is the most on the team by a long shot. It signals a level of consistency that's absolutely vital. You could say he's the engine room of their whole batting lineup.
Okay, now before we look at the bowling, just a super quick definition for anyone who might be new to the game. A wicket is basically when a bowler gets a batsman out. It's the #1 stat for a bowler, kind of like a strikeout for a pitcher in baseball.
And when it comes to taking those wickets, the Falcons really rely on a group effort. There isn't one dominant superstar here, but instead, you've got this core of 4 incredibly effective bowlers. You've got Trent Franco leading the pack with 49 wickets, and he's followed super closely by Bart Dillon, Fitz Levy, and Lamar Berger.
And get this, together, that group of 4 has taken a combined 184 wickets. So what this tells us is that while their batting might lean really heavily on one guy, their bowling strength is a total collective effort. They have a deep, reliable attack that really forms the backbone of this team.
So, what happens when we put all of this together? We've got a star batsman, a deep bowling unit, a major league trophy, and a completely disastrous record in knockout games. It paints a picture of a really fascinating and deeply, deeply inconsistent team.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The stats paint a clear picture of 2 different teams wearing the same uniform. You've got the squad that can grind out results over a long league season, and then you have the one that just seems to crumble when the pressure of a single, must-win knockout match is on.
So, what's the bottom line here?
The big takeaway? Well, the numbers show the Falcons are BBL specialists. They're proven champions when it's a long fight, but they completely collapse in high-pressure knockout tournaments. Their success really hinges on the brilliant batting of Seymour Dunlap and that solid four-man bowling attack. But ultimately, they're a team defined by this huge gap between what they are and what they could be.
Which leaves us with one last big question. Was their BBL championship just a beautiful statistical outlier in a history of otherwise underperforming? Or is it the blueprint for their future success if, and it's a big if, they can just figure out their demons in the knockout stage? The numbers have told us the story so far, but only time is going to tell how it ends.